not sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Would you do laundry and fold your clothes?
Don't think it would take me 13 hours. I hope it wouldn't.
That's a lot of clothes. It is certainly mesmerizing, though. It's, you know, just kind of the slow pace of the ROV and just the kind of unique and almost alien-looking environment. Does it lull you into a meditative state watching the coverage?
Yeah, so we have 2 questions here for the ROV pilots.
Yeah.
So, oh, where are they? What is the time delay between moving the Predator arm remote and the arm moving?
Good question. I like that question a lot. It is, I would say, half a second. Let me think about that.
Wow, that's pretty fast, half a second.
Let me think about that for a sec. I can, maybe a quarter of a second.
Okay. That's pretty good.
So,
and then the other question, the ROV is quite loud. Do you have any idea how much animals you chasing away?
I don't know if we ever can know that. If we were quiet enough to see the animals without scaring them away, then we wouldn't have any electronics to see them. So, kind of a difficult question to answer.
Are there any sound sensors in Hercules?
There's not, because all it would hear would be that vacuum noise that we discussed earlier. But that being said, we have worked on several different cruises. We've taken down hydrophones. So hydrophone is the way to measure sound underwater. We've taken down hydrophones on the porch of Hercules and deployed them and then left the area. So of course the first thing the hydrophone will hear in its recording is Hercules. But as we leave, then it can listen for sounds of animals or whatever it's listening for. And sometimes those are deployed for an hour or 2, or sometimes they're connected to a whole subsea network where their live streamed audio is streamed to shore through an underwater cable. And we just go down, plug it in, and then leave. And then it'll be down there for up to a year or 2.
That's how we survey for whales up here. We along the Hawaiian archipelago, we do have a number of these listening stations at different places along the whole chain in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. And we leave them out there for a year or more, and then come back and get the recording. And that's how we can survey for whales and things like that that make clearly identifiable noises. In some cases, some of these listening stations, interestingly enough, are used to understand the health of coral reef communities. There's a lot of research going on into what a healthy coral reef sounds like and what an unhealthy coral reef sounds like. So there's a lot of interesting research into this sonic profiles of not just identifying animals, but also looking at the health of different habitats. You get an area like Papahanaumokuakea when, we maybe in a year, over the course of a year, 130 people get up into this area and 580,000 square miles, 1.5 million square kilometers, 130 people on various different research or management operations is not a lot of people. If you were to overlay Papahanaumokuakea over the United States, it would stretch from about New Orleans to Las Vegas. So it's quite a large area. And imagine 130 people in that distance. You would never meet each other. So we don't get a lot of opportunity to come up here to do research or continuous observations. So these kinds of autonomous things like listening stations really help to understand what's going on when we're not here to observe it.
And there's another question here. Is the education only for the US or also available for other countries? The education, I guess, about the monument, especially if it's becoming a sanctuary.
Well, it depends on what you're referring to. I mean, certainly we provide educational information for everybody in the world. I mean, anything available on our website and pretty much anything we create as NOAA is publicly available. Certainly the EV Nautilus is publicly available, but if you're talking about opportunities for non-U.S. People to participate in these cruises, I'm not sure about what Ocean Exploration Trust's criteria are for that.
And then there's another viewer asking if we have seen any birds, fish, or whales from the deck.
Well, Chris saw some sperm whales.
Geez.
He's never going to live that
down. Kick a
down.
man when he's down. Kick a man when he's down. He's referring to the fact that we saw some spectacular whales close to the boat, and I positively identified them as sperm whales, and then a real whale expert got on there and he said, Chris is so completely wrong.
And
they were fin whales. So they were large whales. There's no doubt fin whales are like the second largest whale on the planet, and we were really excited to see them. We've seen some oceanic white-tip sharks around the ROV on deploying it, and when we brought it up, we've seen several birds. So the monument provides habitat for 14 million seabirds. And this time of year is really exciting because the albatross come back, as do some of the other species of seabird, to nest and breed on these islands. So at the islands north of us, there are a lot of seabirds. And Midway, every year, there's about 1.5 million seabirds that come and nest on the tiny islands at Midway. So we've seen a few of them. I've seen Laysan albatross around the ship, black-footed albatross, a few different species of boobies, red-footed boobies, brown boobies. We saw a red-tailed tropic bird.
Oh, you
did? I saw a red-tailed tropic bird the other day, and I saw a few shearwaters cruising around.
So what was the one that actually came and rested on the ship for
the boobies?
while?
Yeah, they like to nest on the mast.
There's one on it right now, I think. There's a
There are
red-footed
boobies up there. There's one up on there right now. They love, especially the immature ones, they love to come out and just sit on the masts of the ship. This is pretty common, and they'll stay with the ship for days, and it's a good fishing platform for them. You'll observe them every once in a while jumping off and then scooping something up out of the water like a flying fish or something like that. And I think I saw a petrel. I'm not 100% sure about that, but yeah, there are some Bonin petrels that nest. And interestingly enough, since the Fish and Wildlife Service did such an amazing job at eliminating rats from Midway that came in during the military years up on Midway, they got rid of all the rats. The Bonin petrel population has exploded on island, and they have, I can't remember the exact number, nearly 1 million or maybe more than 1 million Bonin petrels on that island as well. And they I think I saw one of those the other day. So a lot of seabirds, not too many. I mean, we're not inundated by them, but they are
really
around.
Nowhere near their nesting sites.
Yeah, we're a good 100 miles, probably, a good 100 miles from Laysan. Yeah, But this time of year is the peak nesting season for particularly the albatross and the shearwaters. So there are about. And these birds are incredible. I mean, they fly in their lifetime. They'll fly millions of miles. I mean, they spend most of their life on the wing. They only come ashore to nest and breed, and they're really awkward on land and just incredibly graceful over the ocean. They use less energy as they're flying than they do when they're walking around on land. It's incredible.
So how long is it taking the ROVs to come on deck?
Takes a while because they're pretty
Will
dark.
they be up by 8?
They will be up by 8, barring some unforeseen shark attack.
Well, we could see like some really rare squid that we want to pause, couldn't we? Maybe.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty
We
cool.
would stop a scent if we saw one of those crazy rare animals.
So if you're asking that question for somewhere else, that's 8 o'clock p.m. Hawaii time. And what that means is that the ROV is going to be on deck in a little less than an hour and a half. You know, somebody earlier asked about sponge feeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually, sometimes I do this, I go and check my answers after the fact, unfortunately. But anyway, I was pretty correct on this one. They subsist on macroscopic detritus material, but they also consume cellular material, bacteria, non-living particles so small they cannot be resolved with a light microscope. So they are purely filter feeders. And so they basically entrap particles in the water as the water moves through the sponge, and then they consume them. I'm still going to see if there's any information on how the cells actually consume these particles. The type of cells, the feeding cells that capture the small food particles are called choanocytes. I think what else I could say. There is a type of sponge called a cladorizid that actually is a carnivore, and it actually captures prey with numerous hairs that cover the sponge body. And we have a lot of images of these different types of cladorizids in the Okeanos Animal Guide. And it looks like this is what I was thinking, it's intracellular digestion that occurs both in the choanocytes and what they call the thesocytes. So yeah, they just don't have any type of digestive tract or anything like that. So it's all intracellular.
Okay, and the teacher who was asking about opportunities for teachers to be aboard AV Nautilus, she actually scheduled a live ship-to-shore interaction for her students. So yeah,
okay.
that's wonderful. And if that teacher's still listening to us, would you mind writing the name of your school in the chat? I would love to know where you're viewing us from. And oh, here's another question. Do you have to be a teacher to be a science communicator? No, we have, you don't have to be a teacher. You can be any educator, right? As long as you're working with students of any age or learning communities, you can become a science communication fellow aboard EV Nautilus with Ocean Exploration Trust. I think this question is for Aaron, our video engineer.
Yes.
How how extensively do you have to train to control the underwater cameras? To
Well,
learn how slowly or quickly you have to operate around certain animals.
well, so I started in the internship actually 5 years ago. And it's a really great internship. It's on the job, hands-on training. The ROV pilots are all very patient with you while you're training. We have a great guy that is our video engineer lead that trains us. But yeah, it kind of depends on the person and the ROV pilot with how quickly you want the zooms and stuff. The ROV pilots will control the pan and tilt. So the zooms don't really affect the animals. You're not seeing or hearing much of a change with that. So it's more preference of the video engineer or the ROV pilots when they work together.
That was Mexico, right? Is that your first go?
Yeah.
Were we on a watch together? I can't remember.
No, I've only been with Greg before this one.
Really?
Yeah.
For this one, it's always been Greg?
Yeah.
That's great.
I got to work on Dr. Brennan's bioluminescence camera my very first year out.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty cool. But yeah, so the internship program, definitely awesome. Yeah, that was Mexico. I was trying to think about that.
And someone from Muddy, Netherlands is building with Legos while watching us.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Gina was crocheting for 4 hours and working for 8 hours while watching us.
Building with Legos, that's great. I miss Legos. I used to build Legos a lot.
I still have them.
Nice.
I still have them.
I think my mom has them in her class now, but my brother and I had so many. And we take them back sometimes. He's an engineer now, so I'm sure Legos help.
I'm waiting for a family member to have a kid so I can give it to the kid, the big box of Legos, so that I can go over and play with the Lego with the kid.
That's so smart.
We can use kids to actually be able to justify doing things we used to do, can't we?
It's just Trevor over playing with the Legos while the kid's like reading a book.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm doing this for the kid.
Hey, Jimmy, can I come hang out again?
Yeah. Hey, son, do you want to go sledding down that hill? You know, I have no shame. Many years ago, we went to Lake Tahoe in the winter, and we decided to spend Christmas there for a snowy Christmas. Of course, we lived in Hawaii, so we just wanted to see something different. And we bought one of those stupid little saucers, and my wife was appalled, but all the kids are running down the hill on their sleds and things, and then here comes this kind of chubby old guy rolling down on a saucer.
But you had inertia.
I had inertia and it was fun.
I bet you got more air.
Right.
So viewer is wondering if the internship programs are only for university students. Do you know the answer, Erin?
It's okay, so it's university students or recent graduates, because I had graduated a year or two, or maybe a year before I got the internship. So yeah, it's current students or recent graduates.
Thank you for that answer.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the most unexpected observation encountered so far in this expedition, I guess?
Is it your sponge?
Yes.
Oh.
Actually, I don't know why I didn't think of that initially, but yes, now that you mention it.
Which sponge is the most unexpected sponge?
The yellow one today.
Oh yeah, what did that end at? Oh, that's still on the vehicle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in 3 boxes.
That's still this dive. Yeah, okay.
Yep. It does seem like a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was so much to see. That's all right.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
You know, sometimes if you've been doing this for a lot of years, and I think just about everybody in this room can empathize, you sometimes you hope that you see new things, and you often do, but you don't expect it. And then to see a large animal that you've never seen before, and that was a good-sized sponge. Wow, it's something else.
And some viewers were wondering if they can see pictures of the findings on this recent dives. Can they see those pictures? Like if they missed any of the dives, can they see videos?
Well, they can see the
pictures?
YouTube video. It's on YouTube, right? I think Aaron could address that.
Is that yeah?
Yeah, so you can go back on YouTube, you can rewind parts of the dive and go see that. They also post highlights, and then if you go to the Nautilus Live Instagram or Facebook page, they'll be posting photos. And I believe the National Marine Monument is also posting photos. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy? Or updates?
Yeah, some updates, but mostly connecting back to Nautilus.
Yeah, so there's quite a few different platforms to see it on.
Yeah, thank you.
And I can tell you one thing I did, and I don't know if the viewer would like to do this, but I missed some dives along the West Coast, and I'm sort of involved in helping out with a West Coast deep sea guide, and I wanted to see those dives because I really don't know the animals at all. So I went back on the YouTube channel and looked to see which dives I wanted to check out, and I started playing them. And then depending on your computer, you can take captures. I happen to have a Mac, and I would just sort of frame up the shot that I wanted and just take a screen capture, and you can get really pretty darn good quality just like that. You can photos are also available, but that was very quick thing for some meetings. So there's a variety of ways that you can actually review the results of dives. Who is playing with that? Who's doing the animation? I'm just curious.
It's just going on its own. It's pre-made. This is a...
Yeah, that's the Liliokalani seamounts that were mapped in the last cruise.
That's very cool. Somebody did an animation showing the ship's track and the areas that were mapped during that cruise. It's very nice.
That's going to be a site that's going to be, we're planning to dive on next spring, I believe in April. These are some seamounts on the other side of the Hawaiian Ridge, north of us. And there's some pretty interesting sites up there too.
So a viewer is asking, Chris, how did you learn to identify species so quickly?
It wasn't a quick, it was not a, well, some things I learned quickly, but yeah, I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah.
When I first knew that I was going to go down in the submersible, I contacted some people and asked them who had previous experience, what types of animals should I learn? And they actually gave me a list, and I found pictures of those animals. And then I actually took the trouble to create flashcards. Remember, this is about 20 years ago. And I created a set of flashcards that I kept in one of those recipe boxes. And just before we actually went on that first submersible dive, every single morning with coffee, I would pull out that box. And initially, you look at the flashcard, look at your name, and you try to remember what the name is. Of course, you get, if you got like 100 flashcards or something like that, then you remember maybe 1 or 2, and then you start over again and do it again, and this time you get 5 or 6, and then you do it again, and maybe you'll get 10, 15 of them, and then that's it. Then you go to work, and then the next morning you try it again. This time you start off with maybe out 6 or 7 because some of those were retained, and you just keep using your memory and trying to memorize them. In this case, these are all fish because it was a fisheries, deepwater fisheries project. And so I used that. And then later on, when we started getting into more invertebrates, I would get digital photographs. And I had one of these old iPad 1s, the first iteration of the iPads. And I got as many of those invertebrate pictures as I could and put them on the iPad. And even if they had names in a header, I would ignore the name, or I'd cover it up on the iPad. And it's the same process. You go through it, and you look at the animal, and you go, God, I can't remember that. And you look at it, oh, okay, it's a poliopogon sponge, oh, darn it. And then you go on, and you go through them, and then you come back. The next time you go through it, okay, I remember that now. That was a poliopogon sponge. And you just keep doing it. And
so did you organize your cards, your flashcards at the beginning, and
yes.
Any like groups?
Yeah, initially at the start, and then when you're starting to feel a little more comfortable, I would shuffle them like a deck of cards. So I wouldn't know what would come up, and I would shuffle fish and I would shuffle invertebrates. Because part of the things that we had to do back in those days is we had to do visual surveys of fish and invertebrates from the submersible window. And this was not done from the actual videotape. So you had a few seconds to come up with an ID, and we would test how fast, or I would test how fast I could generate from memory what that animal was. And then we had a young woman who had an opportunity to go out in the sub, and she was also going to do these visual surveys, and Annie knows who she is. This is Corey Cunny. And I told her all about this technique, and she started learning them and spent a whole lot of time, and she was all scared that she wasn't really going to remember them or everything else. And then she finally told me a couple days before I guess we were on the boat before her dive. She said, I told her I was going to quiz her, basically, and she told me she's ready. And so I got my iPad out and I set it to sort of auto advance on a random set of photos. So she had literally about 3 seconds to come with that ID, and I didn't control it. I just showed it and started it, and she nailed them all, 100%.
Wow.
And I just said, Corey, you are ready to go. And she did a fantastic job, but it takes work. It's not something that that's easy. You've got to take some time and work at it. And then, of course, over the years, it was my job to actually identify animals from video at Hurl. Every single year, all the time as a job. So you're always getting exposed. And then we got the idea to create these animal guides at Hurl. So you're looking at these photographs and you're putting together captions and everything else, and you're looking at it a long time, and you're consulting taxonomist experts in certain groups of animals for their opinions. So you learn them that way. And so that began the first guide. And then the people that are now working in the dark lab This is Megan Putz and Sarah Bingo. So they were new, and basically they were quizzed at lunch hour. We'd have brown bag lunch, and we would go through all the animals. And they would miss one, and I'd go, "Oh, Megan, come on, man, you know what this is." You know, just in a fun manner like that.
Yeah.
And they learned them all. They learned them all and just
Wow.
became experts.
Oh, great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That learning strategy.
Yeah, you just don't look at them and don't look at the name. You know, you have to force yourself to memorize them. So if you got these flashcards, look at, and I would write the names on the back so I couldn't see them. So you would look at the picture and, what is that? I know that animal. What is that? God darn it, I don't know what it is. And you flip it over. Oh, it's that stupid coral. Okay, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it next time.
Yeah.
It's something you could do with coffee. It's something you could do at lunch, you know, just sitting there.
Yeah. Well, teaching biology, I really have to help my students to do their flashcards to learn all the vocabulary.
Oh, is that, so you use the flashcard?
So, yeah, in the front side of the card, the name and picture representing whatever word, concept. And then on the back, the definition, maybe an example or a question. So 2 things. Yeah.
It's the same
Paraphrasing,
thing.
yeah.
You'd say you can't see the answer right away. You got to look at it and actually try to get it to come out of your brain first. And it won't come out the first time, so don't get disappointed. And it may not come out the second or third time either, but it will start to come out.
Yeah. So, and then after that, if we have our flashcards, we do a quiz trade activity.
What's that?
So every student gets a card, and they pair up with another. So the whole class stands up, and every student has a card, and they pair up with the closest student they have, and then they quiz each other on the card. And after they quiz each other, then they trade their cards. They put their hands up, and then they pair up with the person with that is closest to them with their hand up, and then they quiz each other again. So it's really nice because it includes all of the students, learners, and at their pace.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get an easy word and you do it fast, or sometimes you take longer and you just take your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me it's a very, very similar process that works. And you know, if you don't think you can memorize things very well, I was scared that memorizing things was not my forte when I was going to school. But yet it's not that bad. I mean, once you start in on it, you realize that you can memorize better than you think you can.
Yeah. So here's another question.
Okay.
I think everybody can answer this question in their own experience. How often do you use math in your daily jobs, especially on the Nautilus? I love marine biology, but I'm not super good at that portion of it. So math.
Well, in planning out these dive sites, you have to use math because you have to know what the latitude and longitude is, and you have to know what the depths are. It's not like necessarily doing equations. You have to do some conversions. But not my job. It's not too much math. So I don't know.
Math?
Andy, what's your thing?
I would say that certainly anything above algebra, for the most part, I don't use at all. You know, certainly basic math and more kind of spreadsheet calculations and basic calculations in a calculator, but certainly no calculus, no trigonometry, no geometry. I mean, I don't know. If I need that, I can actually type it into Google and get the answer. So, I mean, it depends on which aspect of marine science you're interested in. Like if you're interested in geochemistry or something like that, that involves calculations of a certain amount of concentration of something in a certain volume.
And unit analysis.
Unit analysis, yeah. Then you need some math skills. It's like stoichiometry and all that kind of stuff. It's, that you need math for that, or concentrations of things. But for the most part, I don't use math, any high-level math at all.
What I learned I had to learn in university math that I definitely do not use is memorizing formulas. They had made us memorize the formulas, and then, yeah, that doesn't happen in the real world. If you don't know how to convert from this to that, then you just look it up. You still have to know that the conversion exists, and have to know how to convert. But you don't have to memorize the exact ratios of things to other things. That's not realistic. But I had to learn that in school, and that would be the thing I use least that I learned in school, was the things that are memorized, because you just look them up in real life.
I use math every day, and I
me
think
too.
it's really bad advice to tell people they shouldn't. It should be. It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy for me, but
Aaron, our navigator, right?
What?
Is this Aaron?
Yeah, it's
in
Aaron.
Navigation.
Navigation and mapping, yes.
Yeah.
And
so
coding and math every day.
So what type of math do you use?
A lot of trig, a lot of geometry, a lot of basic stuff. Nothing like super hard. I had to do calculus and learn about integration and stuff for understanding how certain things work with sonar, but in a daily basis, just nothing too crazy, but you still got to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had to use linear algebra one time to find out the length of a ground fault in a cable. So it was a rare thing. I didn't expect to have to do that, but it's good to learn it in school and maybe even not be great at it. But the thing you really need to remember is that the tools exist. And then when the time comes, if you weren't great at it in school, you can kind of reteach yourself pretty quickly. You learn it in school, you forget it 6 months later, no problem, but it's like riding a bike. It'll come back pretty quick.
I forgot to mention that I like to look at dissolved oxygen concentrations in a little bit different manner that's actually provided in the data package for the Nautilus. So I do have a formula that I have to convert. It's a pretty simple formula, but I do that a lot. But yeah, you need to know some basic math. I actually started out as a math major before I became a biologist, and I was doing pretty well until I hit probability theory in college, and that was my downfall. I crashed and burned, and at the same time, I had a wonderful biology class, and boy, I just jumped ship.
Well, so I will say that, like, it sounded like the viewer who said that they were not very good at math, and I don't want to dissuade this viewer from pursuing a career in marine sciences because they're not good at math. So if it's any indication, I use math most days at my job. However, at university, I never once passed a math midterm. There was not a single math midterm that I passed. So just don't lose hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, but it's not easy for me. It's a struggle.
No, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a terrible struggle, but it's still important, and you just got to push through it. I think.
Just keep working at it, keep working. And if you get good enough to pass the class eventually, then that's all you need to be in the real world. You don't need 98%, because there are checks and balances to your math. You do it out here, then you do it again, and then you have the time to have someone look over your shoulder and make sure it's correct. So don't worry if it's tough for you.
I think that's super important too, what you said. If it's hard, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Totally.
Like everyone in their jobs has some part of it that's hard, and no one's a natural at everything. So even if doesn't come naturally, or you're not good at it, or it's really hard, doesn't mean that you can't pursue it.
Totally. Learn to embrace the failure and be able to laugh at yourself for it, and it ends up making it a lot easier.
I'll give you another example of that. I was horrible in languages. In fact, it's the one D that I got in college was German. And I had to take you didn't have a choice. And then I got into the Peace Corps, and I went to French West Africa, and I had to learn French, and I was terrified. and there's some in U.S. training, and then you go over and do some in-country training. But, you know, you learn something, but then when you're in a place where you're totally immersed and you can't buy anything, food, for example, without knowing some French, by 6 months, I was speaking pretty fluent African French there for somebody who was horrible at languages. So.
Yep, I had that same experience.
Yeah, and it turns out that you actually start thinking in French, which was astonishing to me. Instead of you sort of trying to translate what you want to say, okay, I want to say this in English, so that means I've got to say this in French. It doesn't work that way. You start thinking in French and composing your sentences in French. There isn't any translation. But this is somebody who was really awful at languages, you know, so.
Well, if there is a need, you'll just work until you meet that need.
Yeah.
So, like, I started learning English when I was 14. And it was really hard. I didn't really have a teacher pronouncing words for me. Finished high school, I hadn't even read a book in English. And so, I was very lucky that at my college, Mount St. Mary's College in Los Angeles, I had a lot of time with the nuns. They would practice my English, and I read my first book, O Pioneers by Willa Cather, and I just kept practicing. But it was really hard. It was really hard. And
I've had the same experience on this expedition, sitting next to Chris and have him like spout out all these things and don't make. Now I'm starting. I had some dreams of organisms last night. I'm like, what the heck?
But it's very interesting how like I think in English now, and then I have to translate to Spanish because I don't practice my Spanish that much. Or you dream, or I visit my parents, and they're like, oh, you were talking in your sleep in English. We couldn't understand what you were saying.
Well, I have a slight admission to make. Sometimes I call out some of these names just as reinforcement so that people have a chance to remember what they are. You know, I'll repeat it a little bit, and those who are interested to actually remember them. Like Jason, for example, who was one of the viewers, he knew all about stylasterids, and what was the other thing he knew about just from past cruises?
Yes, well, he's watching us all the time.
Yeah, and so that is one of the reasons why I spout out some of these names, because there are people, you know, that just might be interested.
And they also help you identify organisms, right?
Yeah.
It helped me learn what Paragorgia isn't.
Ramulagorgia militaris.
I still can't pronounce that. You got it already wired.
That's the only
here.
one I can't pronounce. So let's continue with the math in our daily jobs. How about our data logger?
he's laughing over there.
I thought I escaped this conversation.
Thought you'd escape, huh? Yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't really use much math, actually, even in my program that I'm in at grad school. But I agree with everyone what they said. Like, during my undergrad, I just really struggled with math as well. But like everyone and Aaron was saying, even though it's hard, shouldn't be something that stops you from wanting to pursue something like marine biology, because it's just one part of the entire, I guess, field, and you can totally work around it. And especially nowadays, there's so many resources. But yeah, I don't use much math, and I was pretty terrible as well. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, and if you know, you get to the point that you try to do research and want to publish papers, often statistics is a critical function of that.
Yeah, go for it.
So you'll probably need to know some of that at least, or befriend somebody who's wickedly good at it.
And you could always learn on the way or on the go. Most of the times I've learned through my yeah, my advisors or even internships.
Oh, we did not do our math exercise for our audience.
Uh-oh.
How long does it take Hercules to come up the surface? I think we should start that.
Okay, well, I can give him a puzzle.
Uh-huh.
We were at, how deep were we? I don't remember.
We were at 1979 meters.
Yeah, the start of the dive. I'm trying to think of the recovery.
Oh.
17, wasn't it 17
1729? Yeah, we were at, I think we were at 16 something. I don't know. Let's say 1,600 meters. And we come up at about 15 meters a minute. How long does it take us to get to the surface?
So 50 meters a minute.
15. Yeah.
And we were at, what was our, 1856, was that it?
1,600 meters.
1,600 meters at 15 meters a minute.
Okay.
I already know the answer because Aaron just stopped up here and told me what time we'd go to get to the surface, but I won't cheat.
No. No cheating.
Okay, no cheating.
You can't use your iPhone either. You got to do it in your head.
I'm sure you can. I'll do one better. I'll use the built-in time to surface calculator built into my GUI here.
You can only use slide rule or fingers.
Abacus.
Yeah.
I think Travis has got this time to surface tool in his brain. You can just see him working it all out.
Did you call me Travis?
What?
He did.
Did
Okay.
I really?
Yeah.
Oh, Trevor, sorry.
Nice to meet you.
At least he didn't call you sperm whale.
You know why? Because one of the viewers just the other day who sent me some information with Lydia no, it was Lydia Davis. Okay, I have no excuse for calling you Travis.
It's okay.
I was trying to worm my way out of this and I can't. So.
That's all right.
Oh.
The undersea equivalent of squirrel is sea star.
Sea star.
Or actually, it has to be something that moves fast, right? Cusk eel, or what was the common eel? Yeah.
That doesn't really roll off the tongue real
Doesn't.
fast. No.
Doesn't.
No. You know, another course that people might want to be paying attention to in school is geography. Because I can tell you, and I think Aaron and everybody else will support this, that we use a lot of geography.
Yeah.
And there's some really marvelous career opportunities in geography now as a result of the development of global positioning satellite capabilities, GPS, along with software such as geographic information systems or GIS that take advantage of that capability. And one of my favorite things to do, and I did it for years, is to mentor students in GIS, and it was thrilling for me because students, if they try to sometimes figure it out all by themselves, they get very, very disappointed. It's kind of difficult initially, but if you just have somebody there who can get you started on the right path and just highlight certain steps you can take to make your life easier on that, then it is a lot of fun. And we've got somebody right over here, Kainola in the corner, who learned how to create these marvelous story maps, and maybe you could say a few words about that. And I don't know how to do them yet, but it's marvelous what you learned how to do.
Yeah, the ArcMap software is like another extension of the, I guess, the ArcGIS program as well. But yeah, I kind of just, like you, I just learned on the fly, and it's more, yeah, it's more like a visual, I guess, of incorporating what you can create on GIS and other maps, and you can include pictures, and it's another avenue for storytelling. So yeah, it's really fun. It's kind of like creating a website as well. But I also too just started in the last like year and a half, almost 2 years, using ArcGIS Pro, and like Chris was kind of saying, it is kind of frustrating at first, but I mean the things you can do with it, and and really apply it to a lot of different fields is pretty amazing, and it's something I want to improve at as well, and it's something I use in the work I do, and I'm also taking a class right now, so yeah, learning a lot, and I really want to continue on this mapping path.
If you're a visual person, this is really fun stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah, ARC is related to the math, having difficulty with math, but still just do it anyway. That's probably the learning curve on ARC. It's
but,
like so overwhelming at first. Like, what?
Yeah,
I'm never going to learn
if you have somebody like me, and I don't mean that egotistically, but if you have somebody, I really don't. If you have somebody who's been doing it for a long time and just give you a few starting simple points so you don't go down the wrong path, then suddenly it lights up and it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was doing the Holling Scholarship Program, and I would accept students solely if they were interested in ARC, then I wanted to mentor them. And right now at home, I'm mentoring somebody in Hawaii, long distance over Zoom, who just asked for some help. And he heard I did this, and I'm living in Washington. And he shares his computer screen with me. He picked the project. This is the one he's interested in. And I just started him out and started showing him a few tips, and he just lights up. And that's what it is. He's creating his own maps. And last time we did this right before the cruise, he got into ArcScene, the 3D extension.
Okay.
And was creating 3D images of this axial volcano off of the west coast, and that's part of his project. And then he was getting very frustrated in entering this tracking data. It was kind of complicated for him, so we took a look at it, and I told him exactly, it's because of this. Here's a little tip. You need to do this when you're getting this data.
Yeah.
Put it in there, boom, his tracks are all over his maps.
Yeah, it's really satisfying when you figure it out, and you figure out, when you get a tool or what you're expecting to run, and I've also found like YouTube and GIS has really good forums or online resources that also help me out. But yeah, Chris, I might have to.
Yeah, we got to sit down maybe on tomorrow, and we're doing this transit or something. I'll just see if you know some of these tips and that we can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a novice.
Well, like I said, if you just get a few starting tips and you just have a really basic, couple things, then people just go from there. That's all it is, because they'll figure out the rest of it. It's just
yeah, it's really an awesome skill to have, and I think if you're interested in this, just in science in general, it's a good tool to have on your resume or in your pocket and build on, even if it's just basic ArcGIS. It's almost like having basic Excel or any Microsoft skill, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I view it as sort of this quiet revolution that very few people know about. I mean, when you look at news and you see the spinning Earth going around as they go now for news from Iraq or something like that, and they spin the globe around and go to Iraq. That's all generated in a GIS package of some kind.
It's amazing.
A lot of the weather maps and everything else. I mean, we're just not paying attention often to how much it's being used.
Yeah.
City management, forestry, marine here. We use it all the time here. Erin is a specialist. She's really good at the latest version of ArcGIS Pro, which I haven't started yet.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and it's really can answer a lot different questions in science, I think. Yeah. Because you have more access to modeling or predicting these types of things on a map, and it's an advantage really, I think, for science to, like one of my professors, he's working on rapid ohia death, which is a fungus on ohia or native trees across Hawaii, and they're able to fly the drone and access parts of the forest that we can't necessarily access as well by feet, or it'll take a lot of, just a lot of effort. And so when you can do that, and then even remote sensing and do ArcGIS stuff, then you're able to, investigate those a little more.
It's just really marvelous software that's basically designed just to take data that has positioning information, such as the latitude and longitude,
Right.
and if it's above water, an altitude, or if it's below water, a depth.
Yeah.
And then it'll merge all this data together, so you can just sort of, and you can find tons of data online.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. There's so many free data available to download and just play around, or you can create your own project with the data really already available, really. Yeah, it's really awesome.
Yeah. Anyway,
we're nerding out right now.
We both are being sponsored by Esri, the company that...
Yeah.
A viewer is asking if ARC is free.
It's not free, but now they're issuing personal licenses, from what I understand, of maybe $100 a year, which is not horrendous. That's for the type of things that you can do with ARC.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not free.
Yeah.
Well, there are...
But it used to be very expensive a long time ago, and now the prices have come way down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you have a class being offered at your school, or usually you can get it waived through your class, and that's another way to access the resource. Yeah.
There are open source GIS packages too.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to do ARC, but find one of these things. I'll give you a really nerd-like example again. When we were moving to Washington State, every place we looked at, I set up a GIS project for it. And this is going to sound sick, but in Washington, where we were looking at it, I actually had the locations of the Costco's and the Home Depots. I had the rain contours. I had all the topography. I had all of the roads, the parks, the hiking trails.
Wow.
Everything in this project. And then we took a look at it and tried to see where's with all this information, where's the, and it did not take that long or anything else. And everywhere, I've got them for Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, who's considered all of those places. And it was just a way of kind of getting your head around. That's being a nerd, I realize that.
Yeah, you can use it for your personal life, anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, I forgot. I cut out a satellite image of our house and I entered it into ARC so I get a really good view of where the gardens were, because my wife wanted to see some garden planning around my house. And so I created a whole project. You can see where all the property boundaries were and everything else.
And you took it to another level.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anyway, let's make a... We're gonna talk tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll talk later.
I love ARC, so let's have an ARC session. Got any other questions? We're sort of rattling on, killing time here.
No, the viewers like hearing this important information there. One of them says, I love hearing this about ArcGIS. We have written geo apps at school using the MOOC course from Esri.
Fantastic. Yeah, see these, now these guys are taking it to a level that I don't even know about it. I mean, that's what happens. You get a good start, and then you're off and running. People in the lab in University of Hawaii went to ArcGIS Pro, so I taught them ARC, and now they just blew right by me.
Wow.
And that's what happens.
Well, I guess there's so much information in the world, so much knowledge. It keeps coming. We keep creating, and no one can really remember all of that. But we need to learn how to use the tools, how to be resourceful, learn the skills, practice. That's what needs to happen. Know how to use the information that's already there. Know how to use the resources. And just, I guess, just share what your thoughts are. Share what your wishes are and your interests. And you never know who your learning partners will become, or your collaborators, or your mentors. So
It's
what, doors will open?
It's extremely satisfying to see one of your students light up when they get something that you're trying to show them, and you know better than all of us, but there is